r/credit. What was your family secret that you found out? My grandpa was a drag queen. Edit. Story. Okay, so essentially the grandpa I grew up with was not my biological relative, but a second marriage after my real one passed away. My biological grandpa actually killed himself. He had a brain tumor and it's always been unclear to me or hidden from me just what exactly happened. I have been in contact with a few extended family members over the past few years, and I'm just super curious about our family's history, since I don't know that much about it, and we've apparently been bad at keeping oral history. So I'm having a casual lunch with my uncle, and he knows I'm interested in the family history, and he mentions my grandpa's weekends. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, oh, well, after your grandpa returned from the war, he would go to shows in Kansas City every weekend that his wife didn't like or talk about. So here I'm thinking it's my adopted grandpa, which seems really strange because he was like a hardcore family man and isn't the type to just leave his family for a bit without taking about it. My uncle's like, no, this was my real father. My sister found women's wigs and dresses and heels and theater makeup in his closet, and they would be missing every weekend and return when he came home. One time my mother caught her snooping and forbade her from ever talking about it with everyone and said how embarrassed she was, and I'm the only person my sister told. The way my grandma acted made it seem like it wasn't just an affair or some random party with the guys thing. Whenever my grandpa was confronted about it, he would apparently just reply things like, it's who I am, and let me do what I want, and I have the sense that everyone on that side of the family knows, but has buried it deep. TLDR, grandpa was hiding drag wigs / dresses / heels and leaving his wife and kids every weekend to put on shows in a city an hour away. I had a half brother hidden from me for 20 years. Story time. I was a young man at the ripe age of 20 when I received a call from a man looking for a Bob Jones. Name has been changed. I said, well, I'm Bob Jones. The voice on the other line responds, well, I think I'm your son. I ask if he's looking for Bob Jones 3, I'm the 4th, and share names with my father. The individual says yes, and that they found my number in the phone book. I tell them that Bob Jones 3 is my father, but I haven't spoken to him in a few years. They ask if it's okay to come to my house and meet me. They say they are with their mother and want to talk. I say sure. During the next 10 minutes, I start thinking that this can't be real and that one of my friends are playing a joke on me. The man arrives with his mother, and as soon as I got outside and saw him by the car, I knew this man is my brother. We look identical. Same age, same height, same eyes, same hair color, everything. It was like we were separated at birth. I meet his mother and we spend about half an hour talking. Turns out this man is my half brother that is 1 month and 11 days older than me. My father had cheated on my mother, as he had done many times during their relationship, and this was his progeny. I immediately felt like I was on an episode of The Maury Show or Candid Camera. After talking with them, it turns out that we had even regularly played together at my grandparents' house until we were both around 2 years old. My father knew, my uncles knew, my aunt knew, my grandparents knew, but they hid it all from me and my mother. After they left, I called every single one of them in tears to interrogate them on why they had hidden my brother from me for 20 goddamn years. I grew up an only child until my mother remarried and had another kid when I was 11. They all knew that I wanted a sibling to be around and play with. Why did they hide this from me? What good would come from it? I cursed each and every one of them for their deception and told them exactly how it made me feel and how their trust from me was shattered. I will never forget that day as long as I live. I've since tried to reconnect with the brother that was hidden from me, but he's turned out as flaky as my father was in regards to being in and out of my life and keeping promises. All I think now is what could have been if my father's family hadn't hid him from me all those years. TLDR, had a half brother hidden from me for 20 years. Half brother is 1 month older than me. Father's family knew all along. I have two. I've posted both before. 1. My grandpa, who was a really respected electrician before he died, purposely left wires exposed in an asshole's $1 million home knowing it would eventually go up in flames. The guy owned a ranch where my grandfather kept his horse. Sometimes the man would need electrical stuff done around the ranch or his home, so grandpa would go and do his thing. The hundreds of times he went to the man's house, grandpa and my dad, also an electrician, would always see a very large cage somewhere, I think living room, but there was never any pets. The only other living thing in the house being the guy's son, and they found toys inside of said cage on more than one occasion. This was back in the day when cops needed a lot more evidence than just a hunch of abuse, especially when the guy could have easily bribed the cops or make up a story that the son just played in there sometimes. Well, turns out that the man was selling clients' horses to make a profit and would lie to the horse owners, saying the horse was stolen in the middle of the night. My grandfather was an Italian man who did favors for the mob. He was someone you never messed with. So after the guy told my grandpa his horse was stolen and refused to get police involved, grandpa did one last job on the house and left exposed wires in the attic. Exposed wires will eventually spark. 3 years later, the mansion was burnt to the ground, and again, this was back in the day, it was harder to find the reason why. Plus the guy probably had a lot of other electricians/workers in and out of the house in that time frame. 2. My other grandfather, mom's side, had a long road of heart problems. After his either second or third heart attack, my grandpa's doctor pulled my mom aside and told her that grandpa only had a month to live as his heart was so weak. At this point in his life, his wife of 40 to 50 years had been dead about 10, and his life was in the same routine as it was for those 10 years. He'd eat the same foods unless cooked otherwise, went to the veterans bar daily, and would just rarely leave his home in general. Not that he didn't want to live, it was just really difficult for him to live without the person who basically took care of him since their 20s. My mom made the decision not to tell him, because why ruin the last month of his life? Since this was his second or third heart attack, it wasn't strange to him when mom wanted to get everything in order for when he died. Not to mention I think he was in his 70s as well. She didn't make him give her every tiny thing as he'd check on, but enough to where she could find what she needed when he finally passed. I got married within the last 2 years, but I've been with my husband for about a decade. We are in our early 20s and we just found out that he has a half sister about a decade older than he is. When his dad was in high school, he knocked up his girlfriend, but didn't know because she skipped town and didn't want anyone to know about it. She didn't want anything to do with him, never asked for child support or any kind of assistance, but she knew he was well off. He moved out of the middle of nowhere Colorado to the big city on the East Coast, got a career, married a great lady, and during that time, the girl he knocked up moved back into the town that he moved out of, where his entire family still lives. Apparently, his entire family found out about his kid when she got older and started snooping. The town isn't very big and everyone has unique last names, so the family wasn't hard to find. However, the family didn't tell him that he had a daughter, and he didn't find out until she tracked him down personally when she was in her 20s. He apologized, was a big shocked, offered her money and all that for missing out on her entire life. He's honestly a great guy, but they ultimately decided that they didn't want a relationship. However, she was an only child growing up, and the idea that he had a son, which she found out from his relatives because it wasn't brought up by him, made her track us down through our wedding photos which had various family members tagged. She keeps trying to reach out, but it's honestly a bit creepy because it's a little obsessive and stalkerish, hence the throwaway. I feel a bit bad because I guess I get why she is that way, but it honestly kind of scares me. And on the other hand, it's my husband's family and he doesn't want anything to do with her, and the relationship doesn't matter to me either way. We only found out because she reached out, and some family members definitely confirmed it and tried to arrange a meetup unbeknownst to us, who moved to a different area of the country when they came to town. His parents don't know we know. Copying this from another post I commented on, too long to type out again. In the early 1900s my great-grandparents immigrated to the US from Italy. They lived in southern Illinois, great-grandfather working in coal mines, and great-grandmother being a stay-at-home mom. They had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, the youngest child being my grandfather. His brother, my great-uncle, was always said to be tall, thick build, a temper and a love of adventure. when my grandfather was still young. If I remember correctly, under the age of 10 his brother went missing. This was really no cause for concern in the first couple weeks, for he would occasionally hop on a train and take off to Chicago or St. Louis just to see the city. Usually he'd be gone for a week or two and then show back up. After close to a month they knew something was wrong, but no one knew where to look. There was no Amber Alerts or missing persons network to tap into. All they could do was wait and hope he would come back. A couple months later a letter showed up, not in the mail, but nailed to the front door. It was from a group called the Black Hand. They had my great uncle. They demanded a ransom. I do not know how much, but being a poor coal mining family there was nothing they could do. It broke them. My great aunt had a breakdown and spent the rest of her life in an institute. Both of my great grandparents turned to alcohol. My grandfather would retreat to the woods to be alone, which eventually earned him the nickname Jungle. My grandfather told me this story once. He never looked at me the entire time he spoke. I knew he never told anyone this story besides his wife. My mother and her 2 sisters never heard this story until I told them after my grandparents had passed. They never knew they had an uncle, let alone one who was taken by this group. I haven't thought about that story for a long time now, probably close to 20 years. I wonder, and I know my grandfather always did, what became of his brother? How did he get caught up with them? Was he a part of the Black Hand or just another victim? An old family question that will forever be unanswered. My grandfather had a family that he walked out on when he was younger. I don't know if he divorced his wife or just straight up was going to get a pack of cigarettes and never came back, but apparently he just left one day. It was a secret he took to his grave until one day a son from his previous marriage tracked down my aunt, called her, and asked to have dinner. My mom came with her. There he explained that he didn't want to disturb our family or cause any trauma or distress, but he was getting older and needed to know about my grandfather's medical history. He explained that my grandfather was married to his mother whose mental health was deteriorating and left them because he probably couldn't take it anymore or something. He did not really have many or any real memories of my grandfather. Obviously, my mother and aunt were devastated. My grandfather served honorably in the Korean War and was a pillar of his community. He was an accountant in a large Italian American community, and many of his clients couldn't even pay him. They offered him pastries or whatever they could spare to pay him. When my grandmother asked him about it, he told her he just couldn't turn them away. They needed help, and he was in a position to do the right thing. He was loved by everyone he knew. He had no enemies, just people who loved him. He didn't show affection much, but when he did it big. Now, this is particularly weird to me from a psychological standpoint, because my grandmother had a father who walked out on her when she was young, leaving her to fend for her ailing mother and siblings. My grandfather died from cancer almost 10 months before I was born. I'm named after him. My grandmother and other aunt have no idea, and they never will, because only 4 people, including me, to my knowledge know, and we have no intention of sharing. It would devastate my grandmother, who never remarried and loved him more than anything. I have no idea what to think of this man. I want to hate him for what he did, but he was such a great father to my mom and aunts, and did so much for his community. There are just 2 very conflicting reports on his character. Edit, a word for clarity. Thank you all for the kind words. Some of you have been really awesome and it means a lot. I'm absolutely taking what you've said into consideration. And thank you to those of you who have responded with your own similar stories. So, hate may have been a strong word, but I have trouble with how to feel about the guy. Like, I love the father he was to my mom and aunts, but what he did was pretty terrible. Some of you may have suggested it was somewhat justified, but if that was the case, then why hide it from everyone? Also, people talking about DNA tests and stuff. My grandfather has a moderately common last name, but a pretty uncommon first name. It appears as though this guy did thorough research before coming to us. It's my secret that opened up another. I was raped between 2 and 4 years old an unbelievable amount of times and ways by my stepbrother who was 8 years older than me. I confessed this, and that I was gay to my dad's brother and his wife, because they were my absolute closest, highly trusted and very loved family members. I was probably 18 over 19. My uncle started crying because he had walked in on my stepbrother wrestling with me. That's what he called it. While my stepsister watched. She's 4 years older. Once at a huge family BBQ in NJ and immediately told my stepbrother and stepsister to get the fuck off of me and to go downstairs and hang with family. He said he just felt like he walked in on something really terrible, even though we were both fully clothed. He wanted to comfort me, but didn't know how to, so he left me up there crying. He was maybe 21 at the time. I harbor no resentment. My confession led him to confess to me that he was sexually abused as a boy as well, and had only just started going to therapy, and admitted it for the first time 30+ years later. He told me I was brave, but I told him that he was braver for holding it in and not letting it ruin his life. I was the only person other than his wife and therapist who knew at the time. I have a lot of respect for him. They are my only 2 immediate family members who believe that I was raped. It would kill my nonna, and my dad is married to the stepbrother's broodmare, so when I told them, they asked me if I was lying for attention, and when I said no, told me there was absolutely no way that happened because they would have noticed, and 3 promptly forgot I said anything because they must have been drunk at the time, always drunk. I wish I had just gone into detail of one of the many times I was raped. I remember everything I said, was forced to do, everything I saw and smelled. If I shared a single of the thousands of individual flashbacks I have daily with them, they wouldn't keep calling me telling me that I should call your brother. I'm sure he misses you and probably has good advice since you both have the same/similar career fields. Plus he loves you. Yes, diminish my experience and of course remind me how much my brother loves me. Yes please and thank you. And they wonder why I moved across country and communicate very little. That I have a half brother who lived 3 miles away from me my whole life. And the craziest part was the way I found out. TLDR, my grandma used my dad's deepest secret as leverage, an argument they had, and exposed it to me. And so I found out my family secret. My grandma, who, now that I realize it, was backwards in all sorts of ways, got in an argument with my dad after she said something to him that hurt his feelings, and my dad retaliated with something also hurtful. I wasn't there for the altercation because I had just started college, but it apparently triggered something with my father from his childhood. From what I understand, my grandma was pretty verbally abusive to her children. 5 boys, and I believe it's seeing how my dad and my uncles behave. That being said, my dad definitely has some issues and honestly has caused our family some difficulties, but at the end of the day I know he's a good person, that he loves us, and he tries hard when he can. So this argument continues on for months, and continues to get worse because my dad and mom, in solidarity, would not visit for holidays as we had done every year, and the visits to my grandma by siblings and I began to slow down. I've got an older brother, who I'll call Tyler, was about 21, and a younger sister, Ellie, who about 13, who had a great relationship with my grandma. However, my dad and my grandma are both really stubborn. There's no communication between them because my dad feels like my grandma should apologize first and my grandma feels like my dad should apologize first. At this point I'm on summer break, about to study abroad, and leave to go halfway across the world in a week or so, and I get a call from my grandma. I'm driving with my boyfriend to go meet my mom to set up some international travel stuff. Grandma calls, wants to invite our family to 4th of July. I've honestly always kind of had this weird gut feeling from my grandma, and I didn't really mind that our family was separating a little bit. She goes on talking about potatoes or whatever, and it's a bit awkward because we know very well that they haven't settled the issue. Then she starts casually listing off all my cousins that will be there, and then says, and your brother will be there too. And at first I'm confused because why would she call Tyler separately from me and then tell me he's going when we live in the same house? So I said, oh really? Tyler's going? Thanks for letting me know. Grandma goes, oh no, not Tyler. I'm talking about your other brother. So I'm like, Grandma, WTF are you talking? Then she goes, oh well, your father back a long time ago got another girl pregnant and had a boy, his name is Charlie, and he lives just over by the Starbucks on Rose Street. He's got a whole family and this precious little daughter, your niece, and he'll be coming to our 4th of July thing. Just thought you should know. A million things run off my mind, and then like 15 minutes later I arrived to meet my mom, to take care of some bullshit. Then a weird shitstorm followed. My extended family, cousins, and uncles, and Grandma Abvi start a relationship with Charlie, inviting him to holidays, and having get-togethers at his house. I even went to go meet him once, and he looks like my dad. It was fucking weird. There's more but I'll spare the dirty deeds, since this is long. Edit. Grandma spelling shit. Edit. Some people are asking why I have something against my half-brother, or why I don't want to have a relationship with him. I can see how what I wrote must have been misleading, but I don't have anything against him. When I said I went to meet him out of curiosity, that was true, but my post was already really long and didn't want to get into every little detail. I also went to meet him because I felt like he was the one who was hurt the most in all of this, and maybe he just wanted to be a part of the family, and maybe he would like to meet his half-sister. I felt angry at my father because I felt like the life my half-brother went through was unjust and filled with some pain. And yes, of course, I couldn't help but remember that this is exactly what my grandmother wanted. However, I did go to meet him, and our whole visit was done via my uncle communicating with me. We never spoke until I met him at his house, and when I visited him, I had this gut feeling like we, extended fam and me, were just inserting ourselves into his life. I personally didn't want to do that if he didn't want me to, and it wasn't clear to me that he wanted that. The whole time I was there it just seemed like he lived his whole life one way. He was now in his mid-30s with a wife and kids, about twice my age, living a comfortable life. I didn't want to disrupt his status quo unless he wanted it. But of course I understand that maybe he would want to be connected with me and my parents and siblings. After all, we are half the same person, not Mom, Abvi. But I just didn't know how to proceed. Ultimately, my gut told me that my grandmother and uncle were doing just that, inserting themselves and shaking up Charlie's life, unsolicited. I don't know how Charlie felt about it, but I do know that my grandma's actions sure as hell weren't for his sake. She may have said that, but she was using him to be hurtful to my father. And either way, the circumstances were such that my grandmother was now including Charlie in the family, but with the intention to hurt my father. Those circumstances were not the ones I felt were right to start any potential relationship between him and I. Maybe since he's the only who has truly been hurt in all of this, he deserves to be reached out to. But we have met now, and I just don't want to cause any more pain in his life by inserting myself under the assumption that it would be for his benefit, or worse, my benefit. I just think that's presumptuous. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.